everyone, welcome back to Kidding Around. My name is Melanie Smith and I think it is super cool, totally rad, amazingly awesome that you are here with me for another Thoughtful Thursday. I think it's great that you love thinking about other people. Today we're going to be doing an activity and talking about rainbows because who doesn't love a rainbow? Before we do that though, if you like what you're seeing here and want to follow along with all of Kidding Around's videos, please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also below each video, click the thumbs up. Thank you so much. Okay, so moving on to rainbows. You know, I love seeing rainbows. When I see one, I think my whole face must light up. I think a lot of people are like that too. Are you? My guess is that you are. So today you are going to get to make a rainbow mobile that will make other people happy when they see it. You're going to paint this and put this together, and then you can hang it either outside if you've got a covered place to hang it, or you can hang it inside, and when other people see this, you are going to make their days just a little bit brighter. The really cool thing about this is that we are going to make this from painted paper. So we'll talk about that in a little bit, but I first wanted to show you some illustrations that you might be familiar with, or at least you might be familiar with the style. These are Eric Carle's illustrations, and he makes all of these illustrations from painted paper. So he will paint and paint and paint and paint paper, and then after it's dried, he cuts it out and he shapes it and makes all of these different designs. So I just wanted to flip through a little bit so you can see some of these amazing illustrations, and you are going to get to do things in his style today. So you can see, like here, he had some blue painted paper, and it's streaky, right? It's different colors of blue. You can see some white through there, and then he cut it out after it was dry, and he put it there, and then he used some other blue with some blacks in it to make some of the other legs of this octopus. So we're going to get to do that too. We don't have time today to go through any of Eric Carle's books, but I highly recommend you going to your library and checking out any of his books. They are all very good and so much fun to look at to figure out how he made his illustrations. He has a lot of books. This Eric Carle's Mr. Seahorse is one of my all-time favorites. You can check that out. This one is Animals, Animals. He did The Hungry Caterpillar. He did The Little Seed. You're probably familiar with those two, but he's done a lot more too. So go and check him out. And then you'll know that you are able to create in the same way that he does. So let's go ahead and get started. Now this project is one that might require just a little bit of extra help from someone else. You might not need it, but you know what? It's always fun to paint with others, so why don't you ask someone to come and do this project with you? This project is also going to take just a little bit of extra time, and that's just because we're going to have to wait for the paint to dry in a couple different steps. So just be aware of that. And the other thing that you really need to know is that this project can get a little bit messy. I'm sure that you're going to do your best to stay as clean as possible, but I would definitely recommend wearing some old clothes and also having some extra paper to paint on top of and to cover your work surface, okay? All right, with that all being said, these are the materials that you will need. You will need 4 paint colors. These are acrylic paints, and you will need red, blue, yellow, and white. You will also need 6 foam brushes. I suppose they don't have to be foam, but this foam is what's going to give us lots of streaks, which will give us texture, like in Eric Carle's work, and will also make the painting go a little bit faster. You're going to need 6 pieces of cardstock paper or stiff paper. These should be white. You're going to need some scotch tape, some scissors, some paper towels. This is for cleanup and making sure that you always got something to wipe your hands on. You'll need some white string or yarn, and you'll need a paper plate. This is going to be your palette. I normally don't use a paper plate for a palette. I've mentioned that before. I use one that I just continue putting paint on. That way I don't have to toss a paper plate every time. But we're going to be mixing our colors today, so I really want you to be able to see the way that the colors go together. So I highly recommend a white paper plate. And then lastly, as I've already mentioned, you definitely need paper to paint on top of and to cover your work surface. Okay, so let's get started. So as you can see, I have pretty much cleared out my workspace so that I have room to move with wet paint, and I obviously have room to paint. I've covered my work surface because I am going to be painting big, wide swaths of color, and I want to make sure that it's okay if I go off. I am going to go off. I know that I'm going to go off, so I've planned for that as well. So let's get painting. I'm first going to paint with red. This is the first color, the biggest color in the rainbow. So I squeeze out some red, and you don't have to mark your palette this way. I think it might be kind of fun if you do, because that way you'll be able to follow along with me as I mix our colors. You can mix colors without using these little pie pieces, but it makes it a little bit more easy to follow and easy to know which color to put where if you've got your little pie pieces on your plate. So you can go ahead and mark those, or you can just leave your plate plain and then put your paint kind of in the same place that I do on your plate, okay? All right, so here we go, red. So I am going to paint completely across the page, and you can see I am not making it a solid red. I'm leaving some streaks in there, and you can also see that I am going pretty quickly. I'm not taking a lot of care in making sure that all of the paper gets colored. It's okay to me if I've got some white showing through. It's okay where it's darker in places, and it's definitely okay where it's lighter in places too. All right, and you can see it doesn't take very long to do this. It actually takes a little bit longer for it to dry than it does to paint it, which is kind of funny. All right, oops. So make sure to keep a good hold on your paper. I know sometimes that's hard as you're trying not to get super painty. In my house, it's always been okay to get your fingers painty as long as you've got a paper towel nearby that you can wipe them off on if you need to. So I might get my fingers a little bit painty. In fact, I know that I will. But that's okay. I've got paper towels here. All right, so you see I already have my red one done. So now I'm going to move it to a place that is covered as well, because there may be a little bit of paint on the back. So I want to make sure that I'm putting this down on a place that it's okay if some paint gets on. Okay, the next color that I am going to paint is yellow. And you'll see that I am going to just turn my paper around here as soon as I get unstuck. I'm going to turn the entire paper around, and then look, my entire painting surface is clean again. Okay, so this brush is going to stay in the red. Let's make sure that doesn't fall. And then I'm going to use some yellow, and I am going to put my yellow in the place not right next to the red. I'm going to skip a pie piece, and then I'm going to move over to the next one and put my yellow in there. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing. I'll take a clean paintbrush, and I'm going to paint the yellow just the same way that I painted the red. And you can see I'm not worried about getting it solidly painted. And I'm not worried about going off the paper because obviously I prepared and I've got my workspace covered. I'm using paper that I received in a package as my background paper, so it's nice to be able to not use brand new paper for that, to use recycled paper or to reuse paper. And if you get the newspaper, this is a great use for that after it's been read, of course. All right, so I'm almost now done with my yellow. And again, I'm going to paint over my fingers a little bit. I have my paper towels near if I need to wipe off so that I can touch something and not get it painty. All right, now my yellow is done. And again, I'm going to put it on a piece of paper that it's okay to put down on. So now I'm going to take this paper away, and I'm going to lay out another piece of paper. So that way I am not mixing my colors yet. We're going to mix colors, but if I were to take a brush now with another color of paint, I might accidentally mix into that red, right? And I don't want to do that yet. So I'm going to switch my paper out, my background paper, so it's completely clean. Okay, and now I'm going to make sure that I have a place that I can put that I can put two new colors on. So there we go. I've got paper that I can go off on. All right, so now I'm going to take my blue paint and I'm going to put it in between the red and the yellow. So there should be a white pie piece between each one of your colors, or it can just be a big white space. It's up to you. Now I'm taking a clean brush and I am painting the blue just like I did the red and yellow. There's no finesse to this. I'm just painting. In fact, I know I'm painting quickly, but I think I'll even speed up the video. Okay, so now I have my blue painted, so I'm going to move that one now out of the way to a safe place. And then I am going to turn this around. And there, I've got a brand new clean workspace, right? Okay, so we've painted red, yellow, and blue. Those are the primary colors, but the rainbow has 3 other colors, right? We need to do the orange, green, and purple. So those are secondary colors, and those are made by mixing primary colors. So we're going to mix our secondary colors now. So to get orange, do you have any idea what 2 colors you have to mix? You have to mix red and yellow. So that is what we're going to do in the pie piece between the red and yellow paint. So I'm going to put just a little bit of red. So that's the secret to orange, is putting just a little bit of red to about probably 3 times as much yellow. And then I'm going to take another clean paintbrush and I'm going to carefully mix together my orange. I really like that orange, but I don't think I had quite enough, so I am going to put just a little bit more paint there. I liked my proportions, so I'm going to try to stick to the same proportions, a dot of red to quite a bit of yellow. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to paint this paper orange. And you know what's really cool is every once in a while as you're painting along here, you're going to see a bit of a streak of red or a bit of a streak of yellow. Probably, at least I do. And that's okay. You know, you can continue mixing it right on the paper. You just go over it with your paintbrush and that'll mix it. Or you can leave it just like Eric Carle does, because it's kind of fun to have all of those streaks of color. Okay, so I've got my orange now. So now this gets a little bit tricky because I have kind of a limited space to use here. You'll be able to use probably a bigger table, so you won't have quite as many space issues, I bet. Okay, so now I am going to grab another piece of painting paper. I should also mention I'm keeping these papers that have the colors on them that I've, kind of outlined here. We will need these in the future, so make sure to keep those. But I am going to grab my last piece of paper here for my last 2 rainbow colors. All right, so we have red, orange, yellow, and blue. So then we need green and purple. So let's do green next. Do you know what 2 colors make up green? Yellow and blue are the 2 colors that make up green. So it's kind of cool to see how this is actually a color wheel that we're developing here. The color wheel works in such a way that it's red, and then you mix it with the color next to it, the next primary color, and you get orange, and so orange goes between. And so you have yellow, and then you have blue. Those are the two primary colors that are next to each other, and in between will be the color that's mixed. Isn't that cool? So green now will go here between yellow and blue. And again, with mixing yellow and blue, you want more yellow than blue to get your green. Trying to stay in my pie piece, we will need the yellow and blue as we go on, the primary colors, so I want to stay out of their way as much as possible. All right, so I've got my green, so now I'm going to be painting it. You see the streaks of yellow there? That's cool. I'm just going to mix it a little bit as I paint it to make it look a little bit greener, but I do like that little yellow showing through. I think it adds a bit of fun. Okay, so there is my green. So where am I going to put this? I'm going to pull out some paper towels and I'll put it on there. All right, so I'm going to put that right there. And these papers will curl up a little bit as you paint them. That's okay. We're going to paint the other side and that will make them curl back the other way, so it's totally fine. And you know, you can see here that I didn't quite leave myself enough room to do my purple on this paper. So I am going to do something that I told you not to do. And I'm going to paint over my green just a little bit. I'm okay if my green and purple mix a little bit, so I'm all right with that. But if you do it, try to have your separate pieces of paper. I just wasn't thinking when I put that first page down. Okay, so we have our last color of the rainbow, which is purple. And so I think that you can probably tell by looking at this that the way to get purple is to mix blue and red. So we're going to do that right now. Blue and red are both pretty strong colors, but you know, I think red wins out. So I would put a little bit more blue than I do red as I mix my purple. The other thing about mixing acrylic paint, when you make purple with red and blue, it goes pretty dark pretty quickly, and it can actually even look black very quickly. So I always add just a little bit of white to lighten it up so that it doesn't look black and it actually looks purple. And now I am going to paint my purple. You know, I feel like this is still coming out just a little bit blue, so I will add just a little bit more red. As you add color, it's easier to add a little bit at a time. As soon as you add a lot, if you add too much of something, you'll start to see that you're going to have to add that much more of the other color paint. So definitely start small. You can always add more, but it is hard if you have to start adding a whole bunch of paint to your plate. So now we have 6 pieces of paper, all rainbow colored. So I'm going to now be flipping over my paper and painting the same color on the back side. The reason that I said to keep this extra paper that you used at the beginning was so that you could then go and you can place the same color paper. So I have my red paper, I will place that down on the table here and I will use that to then paint the back. And then I will grab my yellow And I will do the same using the yellow that I started earlier. So I will meet you when we all have 6 pieces of paper that are all colored on both sides. Okay, so you can see here that I have painted all of the backs of my paper. So I have purple on the front, purple on the back, orange on the front, orange on the back. And the same is true with all of these papers. You might see that they'll curl a little bit as they're drying. Don't worry about that too much. I mean, if you see them curling up quite a bit, just go ahead and push them down. But as they dry, they will continue to flatten out. The other thing that I wanted to bring your attention to was your color palette. Look at how beautiful it is. And it's a great representation of the color wheel. So you've got red and yellow here, and between them is orange because red and yellow mix to make orange. You've got red and blue, and between them is purple because red and blue mix to make purple. And then here you've got blue and yellow, and between them is green because blue and yellow mix to make green. So hopefully that's a little bit of fun. And you know what? You could even keep this palette as art of its own. So I am going to go and clean up all of my brushes and make sure that all of my painty paper, the background papers that are wet, get to the trash. I'm going to fold them up very carefully so the paint isn't on the outside. I'm going to recycle those, and then I'm going to clean my brushes, and I will see you back here when I am finished with that. Okay, so everything is cleaned up now. My brushes are washed and they're drying, and I have taken all of the background paper that I used and it is in the recycle bin. So this is actually a great project that allows for some cleanup time in it, because after you've painted everything, you can go and clean up and everything is drying, so you're getting 2 things done kind of at once, right? Okay, so as I mentioned, I've got all of my pages here and they're dry, and I'm going to put them in rainbow order so that I know how to cut them out. So do you know the little trick to remember how the order of the rainbow colors go? It's a name, Roy G. Biv. If you can remember that name, you'll be able to remember the order of the colors. So Roy, R in Roy, stands for red. That's the top color on the rainbow. And then O in Roy, so Roy is spelled R-O-Y, the O is orange. The Y is yellow. So you see red, orange, yellow, R-O-Y. And then the G is green. And Biv is spelled B-I-V. So it's blue for the B, and the I stands for indigo. We're only doing a 6-color rainbow. If you do a 6-color rainbow, that indigo is skipped. And then Biv ends with a V, which is violet or purple. So that's a fun way to remember. So now that I have my stack, I'm going to pull out that top color, and I know that this needs to be the biggest one because that's the tallest arch in the rainbow. So I am going to draw with my pencil the arch that I want to cut out. I'm also going to provide below this video a template so that you can cut that out and trace it if you would like, but I'm just going to freehand it, and you certainly can too. So I'm just going to draw the arch of the rainbow. This is the lower part of the arch, and then here is the upper part of the arch. You want to use most of the paper so that you have room for the other colors. So once you have that drawn, then you can go ahead and take your scissors and cut it out. You can see here all of the different variations of the red in my painting. I love that. That's just like Eric Carle. And again, it adds so much texture and fun to the rainbow. All right, and again, nothing needs to be exact. You can definitely tell this doesn't need to be exact. The really cool thing that this project leaves is all of these scraps of painted paper. Eric Carle would love that. You can use these in so many other projects. I would love to see if you're able to make these into other projects like Eric Carle does as well. So I'm going to set this aside, and I'm definitely going to keep those. But then, moving on to my rainbow, I am going to now place the red that I had there, and now I'm going to draw the underside of the orange, just like that. And I'll lightly trace that top one so I know kind of where to cut. but I'm not going to worry too much about being exact. I'll probably just cut them at some point and not even draw them. So now I've got my orange, and I'm going to cut the outline on the orange. Look at these beautiful colors. This orange definitely reminds me of a sunset. I'm saving that scrap. And then I'm going to cut the top layer. This is going to be so much fun when you put together. People are going to love watching your rainbow sway in the wind. All right, now I'm moving on to my yellow. So I'm going to take my orange arch and I'm going to outline it just the way I did my red on the orange. All right, so I want the yellow to go under the orange, so I'm going to draw what I want it to look like. Just like that. And you know what? I'm not even going to trace along the orange. I'm just going to eyeball that. This is art at its finest. There's nothing exact to it at all. It's going to be so beautiful just the way that you make it. Nothing in nature is perfect. Nothing in life is perfect. So I am all about imperfect art, which again, to me, is imperfectly perfect. Okay, so there is my yellow. And again, save your scraps. Make some animals. You can post those on Facebook too. I would love to see your rainbows, but I would also love to see any other art that you make with this painted paper. It's such a treasure. Okay, so now I'm doing my green. I laid out my yellow on the green and I'm drawing the green arch. And I, again, am not going to draw even that top arch. I'm just going to eyeball it. All right. Let's see, what does this green remind you of? Does it remind you of maybe grassy fields? I can definitely see that. I think even looking in that Eric Carle book, I saw some green backgrounds that were painted just kind of like this, that were supposed to be, you know, the fields behind the animals or the grass underneath the animals. Okay, my rainbow's coming together pretty nicely, I have to say. So now I'm going to put my green on the blue, and I am going to trace that bottom arch. And I'm not going to trace the top arch, just eyeball it. It's totally cool to not have something exact. All right, so I'm cutting that arch out. Save the scraps. I just don't want you to accidentally forget and recycle them. Okay, there we go. The top of my blue arch is cut. And yeah, it's looking like a great rainbow. It really is. All right, so now I'm going to put the blue on the purple, and I'm going to trace this arch. And this one I am actually going to trace right along the blue, and that's just going to be the entire arch. Because if you remember on my sample, well, that didn't lay out very well, did it? On my sample, I just left the purple as kind of the inside of the blue arch. So this one I did just trace right there underneath the blue instead of out here where the normal arch would have been. You can do it either way. If you would like your rainbow to have that sixth arch of purple, you know, you could actually cut in a little bit here and then make this look much more like the shape of the rest of the colors. But I am actually going to kind of fill in the arch under the blue. So I traced right next to the blue, and I'm just going to cut it out and keep it solid. It's your art. You do it how you want to do it. Okay, so now I've got all of these lovely colored papers. I just need to attach them. And this is by far the easiest thing to do. So you're going to take some string, and you can cut it however long you want. If you want your string to be, if you want your mobile to hang way down, then make sure that your string is super long. If you want to hang it up way close to the ceiling, then it doesn't need to be so long. It's up to you. All right, so now I have my string about the length that I want it, and I've laid it right on top of my rainbow. And now I'm just going to take some tape, and I'm going to just simply tape that string right on top of my rainbow. The only thing is that I want to make sure that I'm only taping on the color that I want to tape on. So I'm taping on that red, and then I'm going to push down as much as I can on the tape because that makes the tape become much more invisible. So I'm taping now on the orange, and you can see that I have the tape is a little bit wider than the paper, so I'm going to go ahead and just cut it in there. If it's in such a way that you can just wrap it around, you can do that too. Like on this top here, I think I can just wrap it around to the other side. And purple. And there we go. We have our completed rainbow. I'm just going to go over the tape just a little bit more to make it a little bit more invisible. But you know, truly, as it's hanging and spinning, people will not see that tape. And there we go. We have a rainbow mobile that is going to bring a smile to everyone's face who sees it. Thank you so much for joining me. I would love to see your rainbow mobiles and any other art, like I said, that was made with your painted paper. Your parents can post those on our Facebook site. Well, I hope you've had fun making this rainbow. I know I certainly have. Thanks so much for joining me. Thanks so much for kidding around with me. I will see you next time.